10 years ago, 500 million people, it's estimated, watched the landing of man on the moon, and most of us who are old enough to remember can think back on that time. Remember where we were when we saw man first set foot on the moon. There's a lot going on here at the Space Center in the commemoration of that first historic event in America's space history, and we're here to tell you all about it and cover it and bring you up to date on it as the evening progresses. Right now, Dave Game of News 48 is standing by at Huntsville Tranquility Base to tell us some more about the activities that are going on. Dave?
Well, Jack, it's like being down in a crater here. Actually, I feel like Neil Armstrong when he made his first step. The atmosphere, as I'm sure you know, is really getting very anticipatory. Everybody here knows just what kind of show is planned for the Alabama Space and Rocket Center for tonight. Well, for those of you who might not be able to make it, or for those of you who would just like to sit home and watch tonight, we attended a dress rehearsal last night to give you a sneak preview. Let's take a look at it.
Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
That is a conversation 10 years old today. Commander Neil Armstrong telling the waiting world that man, for the first time, had landed upon another heavenly body. What you see here is not history, it's recreation, a reenactment of that historic visit of June 20th, 1969. Last night, actors and technicians worked for hours to get details straight for tonight's reenactment of the moonwalk at the Alabama Space and Rocket Center. Actor Byron Tidwell will play Colonel Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon.
What is it like to portray a man whose name will be remembered forever?
Well, my goodness, that's something I don't really think about. What we do think about are the technical aspects of trying to make it look like 1/6 gravity and to come down the ladder without falling out of the limb and to get out of the small hole with his backpack.
The reenactment leaves one with an eerie feeling of reality and imparts a deep sense of what the moon mission 10 years ago meant.
Dear men from the planet Earth, first set foot upon the moon, July 1969. It came in peace for all mankind.
We're back right now live and with the gentlemen involved who are actually going to orchestrate what you saw just a moment ago. Gentlemen, your name is?
Gus Hergert.
Gus?
Tom DeWilly. David Milley.
Okay, gentlemen, you are the people behind all these masses of equipment and speakers and lights. How did you tie all this together to come up with a show that's going to convince people of the reality of it, I guess? It really looked real last night.
Well, basically, we went by the script of what actually happened that night and then just added a little music, little effects, and little lighting to drum it up.
You worked with the audio. Where did you come up with the effects and the script for the thing? Did you just take from a record, or?
We took from about 9 different sources on the actual audio. Then we added music from Handel and Bach and drummed it up a little bit.
It's a very impressive score. Now, the lighting was the effect that really got me last night. It was just spectacular, especially the blue lights when he was first coming out. How did you decide upon the lighting effects for this?
Well, we made the moon look like what we think the moon would look like. And the rest of it was mainly, as the script read, bringing the different parts in emphasis as we were going.
How rough a job was this to do?
A lot of cable running and a few hours of work, for sure. The roughest part in terms of simulation, lighting is relatively easy to do in terms of getting light there. But when you start talking about special effects, as in the pyro effects here, it's impossible to simulate a Saturn V. Its real exhaust flame is 1,000 feet long, so
Right.
we're using smoke and bright flares.
And we saw that last night. We couldn't show it on television, but it was quite impressive. Gentlemen, we'll let you get back to your work. We thank you for talking to us, and I hope a lot of people show up tonight to see what's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, earlier today, we managed to touch on another part of the space venture, an end of a space program that's been ongoing now for 10 years. And that was the return of Skylab, where the pieces that might have been Skylab were finally analyzed for good today.
It was appropriate that NASA scientists decided the authenticity of the chunks of charcoal on this 10th anniversary of man's landing on the moon. A solid week of exhaustive test was compiled this morning and led scientists to their decision that the material which looked like charcoal was actually that, charcoal from outer space.
In examining the debris that we received in comparison to the parts that we made in our laboratory under controlled conditions so we knew what it was, we were able to quite confidently say they are the same. Now, we cannot say with absolute certainty that these parts that were submitted to the San Francisco Examiner came from this point of Skylab or that point of Skylab. We cannot even say with absolute certainty that they did come from Skylab. We can say that our crew in Australia now has found comparable materials on the roofs of homes in Esperance, that we can explain that the materials submitted are indeed very much like materials we knew were on Skylab, and we know that Esperance was the coastal city, first coastal city in the footprint of Skylab. And therefore we believe it's a reasonable assumption to say that these materials in fact did come from Skylab.
There will probably always be some small doubt because of the difficulty of analyzing the samples, but today there was no doubt on the mind of newspaper editor Steve Cook, who brought the samples to Huntsville for analysis.
We're quite satisfied with the report, and we're very thankful to NASA.
Today, a 17-year-old Australian boy was given a $10,000 check from Cook's paper for finding the pieces. That was probably the best thing to come out of the death of Skylab. Now NASA scientists say they're ready and eager to get back to more pressing business, like the upcoming space shuttle missions.
And like Skylab and like the moon landing itself, Skylab, or rather the space shuttle, has a very important impact on the Huntsville area. And as the weeks and months progress, we at News 48 will keep you updated on that. Sort of an appropriate day to mention the space shuttle as we close out Skylab and remember the first walk on the moon. Jack, that's it from Tranquility Base.
Okay, thank you, Dave. And we continue with our live edition of News 48 Update, the early segment, and remind you that tonight at 9 o'clock, right here on TV 48, NBC will be presenting a special one-hour special on man's journey to the moon. We will also be back here live tonight at 10 o'clock to bring you up to date on all the activities going on at the Alabama Space and Rocket Center. There's other news tonight, a double murder in Dekalb County. Also in the developments, that next when News 48 Update continues from the Alabama Space and Rocket Center.
Think a price of $46.88 for a popular car.
Back now live at the Space and Rocket Center. Tragedy in the news tonight, a double murder in Dekalb County during the past evening. News 48's Marla Miller has the details. Karen Friedman's report about the Bar Association meeting, and we apologize also for the lack of color in that report due to technical difficulties. It was in black and white. Understand now that we do have the report available on that double murder in Dekalb County last night. Here's Marla Miller.
7-year-old John Wisant was gunned down at this spot as he tried to run for help. Just before 6 this morning, his body was found by next-door neighbor Gerald Chapman.
I came out to take my garbage out to the main highway here, 75 highway, and I found a body laying in front of my truck on my drive, face down.
Wisant had been shot 3 times, once in the head. A short time later, Wisant's 43-year-old wife Meredith was found dead in the kitchen, shot once in the chest. But some of the bullets missed their mark. One even hit Chapman's home.
Last night there was a lot of shooting, loud shooting. It was a high-powered rifle or something, what it sounded like, a deer rifle. And that's all I heard. I came into my garage and looked, and I didn't see anything. Last night I figured they was just target practice maybe or something up next door.
Authorities say they were unable to find Wisant's wallet or his wife's purse, yet they're ruling out robbery as a motive. Sheriff's investigators have issued warrants for a suspect whom they hope to have in custody by tomorrow. Marla Miller, News 48, DeKalb County.
And in Coleman County, authorities are investigating the robbery of a rural couple this morning. According to investigators, 3 armed men entered the home of Benny and Carrie Dunn and took a small amount of money. The two of the men armed with pistols, the third armed with a sawed-off shotgun. The Dunns didn't suffer any injuries, but Mrs. Dunn was taken to a hospital for treatment because she's been in ill health recently. The incident occurred around 10:45 this morning at the Dunn home on Gold Ridge Road, just east of Coleman. At News Time tonight, the search for those suspects continues. A sexual abuse law has won House approval in the Alabama legislature. The proposed law would make certain acts of sexual abuse, such as those committed by the so-called Southwest molester, punishable by 10 years to life in prison. The measure now has to go back to the Senate for approval on an amendment to the bill. Legislation was sponsored by Senator Bill Smith of Huntsville at the urging of the Women on Watch group. The bill would make sexual assaults and breaking into a residence and sexually molesting an individual a felony. As the law stands now, if a person breaks into a home and sexually molests a person without committing actual rape, it's not considered a felony under Alabama law. Well, as we told you earlier, we're coming to you live from the Alabama Space and Rocket Center. We're keeping our fingers crossed for good weather tonight for the reenactment of man's landing on the moon. Glenn Bracken is at the Outdoor Weather Board now near Tranquility Base to tell us what it looks like. Glenn?
That's right, Jack. We're still having our outdoor weather, but we're not on the outdoor weather set. As you can see, we're right down here at the Alabama Rocket and Space Center, still celebrating 10 years ago, man on the moon. Let's go on over here to the weather map now, and you can just see behind me the Saturn V coming up back there that landed on the moon, and here we are. I'm afraid most of you aren't going to like the weekend forecast, but it is good news for area gardeners, farmers, and my grass anyway. We're going to get some more rain, I'm afraid. About a repeat of this afternoon for tomorrow. It might improve on Sunday. What's causing all that is what is now a stationary front. We thought it was going to remain stationary down in South Alabama. That didn't happen. The thing turned warm again on us last night, moved north. It has already moved through Huntsville now, brought lots of cloud, a lot of more moisture coming up from the south, and just gave us a generally cloudy conditions and generally heavy rainfall. We officially recorded 1/3 of an inch here in Huntsville, but over northeast Alabama, some other folks got more rain than that. Chattanooga having flooding in some city streets with 2 inches of rain, 2.5 inches over in the Carolinas, and out here, the heaviest rain still. 5 inches of rain reported in Abilene, Texas last night in about a 4-hour period. Ash flood watch is in effect for this entire region, and the same for Arizona and part of New Mexico also. What's going to happen to our weather? I'm afraid not much. It looks like the front is going to remain stationary just about in this position right here for tonight, then move back down to the south again. That's right. It's going to just waffle up and down over the southeast, down to a position about right here probably by tomorrow night, and that's why the weekend doesn't look as good as it did on yesterday. A waterspout and a tornado both reported down at Keesler Air Force Base near Biloxi, Mississippi, but no reports of damage or injuries from those storms. It won't be a good weekend for the beach either, I'm afraid. Our high today only got up to 80 degrees due to the cooler air and the cloud cover. Our low last night was 71, and we'll have that discouraging forecast in just a moment.
A1 Appliance Parts, the one place.
Well, here we are back again live, Alabama Space and Rocket Center. Our whole newscast is live down here at 6 and 10 tonight. Come on down and see us. We also want to salute everyone responsible for the Man on the Moon program, especially everybody here in Huntsville that had a hand in it. You can see we are live. There's our live camera 48 truck with a remote dish sending our signal back to the studios, and more rockets back over here again. Here's the bad news now. Let's look at the radar on the 250-kilometer range, and our scope is just about filled with level 1, level 2 precipitation. There are some embedded thunderstorms in there near Coleman, and between Huntsville and Scottsboro now near Grant. That's what was on top of Huntsville Mountain about an hour ago, gave us some heavy rain there. The heaviest activity is in those areas and again near Jasper, Alabama. So you can see we're going to have rain all around the area throughout the remainder of the evening, and possibly we might get wet out here at 10 o'clock. We've been lucky so far right now. The forecast for tonight is calling for cloudy skies with a 40% chance of showers. Low tonight will be near 72 degrees, southeasterly wind less than 6 miles per hour. Then for the weekend, bad news, I'm afraid to tell you this, considerable cloudiness, warm and humid with 50% chance of scattered thunder showers on Saturday, decreasing to 40% Saturday night and Sunday, and then high 85, low 71, high Sunday 88 degrees with a wind increasing to 5 to 10 miles per hour. Monday and Tuesday still looks pretty good, variable cloudiness, some sunshine, warm and humid conditions with scattered thunder showers, highs near 90, lows at night near 70. 48 ag weather forecast, we're now down to a plus 1.08 1/100ths of an inch on rainfall, and that's not much, so we do need what we're getting this weekend. Drying conditions will be poor for all area farmers. Heat stress on the good side, though, will be little but any. And y'all, that's an outdoor look at weather live at the Space and Rocket Center. Now back to Jack.
Thank you, Glenn. Other news today, the Alabama legislature has finally passed 2 major education money bills, but the passage didn't come easy. The Senate had to work into the early morning hours today, settling a dispute over teacher and school worker pay raises. The upper chamber approved a conditional 7% hike for teachers and support personnel at all levels except at junior colleges and technical schools. Last night, the House approved a total $1.2 billion education budget, and today, Governor Fob James said that the measures approved are so close to what he recommended recommended that he doesn't anticipate any problems in working out minor differences. And in a Montgomery news conference, the governor said he may send those bills back to the legislature with some executive amendments. If that action happens, the final action on the legislation would come July 30th. That's the last day of the legislative session. At that same news conference today, the governor said he might go along with a horse racing bill proposed for Lawrence County. But James said that he would do that only if three-legged animals were allowed to run at the horse racing track. That tongue-in-cheek remark came in response to a question as to whether he would sign or veto the bill. The governor said he may send the bill back that would allow a referendum vote in Lawrence County back to the legislature with that executive amendment requiring that any animals that run at the track must be three-legged. Every year, the Lurleen B. Wallace Development Center in Decatur conducts what they call the world's biggest yard sale. But as Maria DeCarry reports tonight, that event may be in danger of losing its distinction.
2 rooms of the Lurleen Wallace Development Center are full of items for this year's world's largest yard sale. The rooms are packed with a variety of items ranging from TVs to home furniture. Pipe smokers especially are sure to find a bargain among the more than 1,000 pipes donated. But workers at the center say right now about 1/3 fewer items have been received over last year.
It may be that the energy crisis and people's concern about having enough gasoline to get them where they need to go has hurt us, because we found that in the past several weeks people have not been bringing in donations to the center like they were a year ago this time.
The money raised from the sale goes to buy tickets for concerts, outings, and other extra items for the residents, such as last year part of the $40,000 raised brought drapes for every resident's room.
I think there's been a false idea that mentally retarded people don't know the difference. Sometimes you hear people say, well, they wouldn't know the difference. But we found that to be quite wrong, because whenever we put something of beauty in someone's room, like a picture or new drapes or an attractive piece of furniture, we find them to be very excited, very proud, and very appreciative.
This year's yard sale is scheduled for August 17 and 18 outside on the Wallace Center grounds. Maria DeCarry, News 48, Decatur.
And what would a live sports broadcast or a live news broadcast be from the Space and Rocket Center without our sports director, Tony Troiano? He gets to do this all the time, folks. Hale Irwin is in the lead and on top at the British Open Golf Tournament. Tony will tell us about that and all the sports when we come back.
Watch Nashville on the Road every Sunday night at 11 p.m. right here on TV 48.
Well, we're back live at the Alabama Space and Rocket Center. We'll be here right now for the remainder of this newscast and back again tonight at 10. It's kind of exciting to be out here, isn't it?
I like it out here. Wish we could do it every night.
You're like a kid in a candy store running around out at some of those rockets a little bit.
I've been out here twice, but it never ceases to amaze me. I like to look at these rockets.
Fascinating.
It is.
Sure is. Tell us what's going on in sports.
All right. Hale Irwin remains the leader after 3 rounds of the British Open golf tourney. However, the front runner had a little trouble today. He shot a 75. That's 4 over par. His 54-hole total is 211, 2 under. Spain's Severiano Ballesteros is in the second spot. He's 2 shots back. And the Golden Bear, Jack Nicklaus, he's 3 back. Let's take a look at some of that action in today's 3rd round.
18th, Irwin had only to maintain his accuracy to perhaps increase his lead.
Get out.
But possibly the pressure from Ballesteros had finally got through, as Irwin made a rare mistake. The crowd had the novel experience of watching the immaculate American play out of the rough. He doesn't have to play himself out of trouble very often, but he showed he does have the shots. Ballesteros then had the chance to nibble away at Irwin's 2-shot lead. Yesterday, Ballesteros birded the 18. Could he do it again? Disappointment then for Ballesteros. Opportunity for Irwin to hang on to his 2-shot lead. So Irwin and Ballesteros will be the final pair playing tomorrow.
This is Jack Nicklaus for par 4 at the final hole, the 18th. It's for a round of 73. might send him off.
Great after all these years. Better late than never, Oakland Raiders quarterback Kenny Stabler arrived in training camp today. The Snake was a week overdue. He says he wants to be traded. Signal caller is at odds with Raider management. Stabler took a lot of criticism in the offseason, being blasted for the Raiders' poor showing last year. It's the first time in 7 years they didn't make the playoff. He didn't like it. He wants out. One game in the majors this afternoon in the National League. Chicago banged Atlanta, all you can say, 10-2. Rick Rochelle scattered 5 hits in 6 innings to pick up the win. He upped his own cause by driving in 3 runs with a single and a bases-loaded walk. Cubs broke the game open with a 5-run 5th inning. And George Sisler is the man reported to be the top choice for the new job as New York Yankee president. Sisler has been in charge of the Yanks' top farm club in Columbus, Ohio. He'd replace Al Rosen, who resigned yesterday in a feud with Yank owner George Steinbrenner and manager Billy Martin. And so, Champ, that is a look at sports.
And, of course, you'll be back out here tonight at 10, too.
I sure will. Before, I want to see this thing tonight.
Okay, and we're going to talk some more about that when we continue live from the Alabama Space and Rocket Center.
Bobcat Cadillac.
We're watching you live.
That's going to about wrap it up for the early edition of News 48 Update, but we'd like to remind you that tonight at 9 o'clock, NBC News presents a special half-hour program, a special hour program on man's landing on the moon, and we'll be here immediately following that for a reenactment of man's landing on the moon here at Huntsville Tranquility Base. So until 10 o'clock tonight, for Tony Troiano and Glenn Bracken, who is here at the Space and Rocket Center, I'm Jack Robertson. We thank you for joining us. Join us again tonight at 10.
When you see news happening, call News 48 with your news tip. In Huntsville, call 533-NEWS or toll free in North Alabama, 1-800-572-2003.